What up, kinfolk? Let me ask you something. When you think of classic Konami arcade titles, what usually comes to mind? Okay, let me rephrase that. When you think of classic Konami arcade titles that are not based on pre-existing intellectual properties, what comes to mind? Now, you're probably thinking of stuff like Puyon, Circus Charlie, Gradius, Gyrus, Jackal, Blades of Steel, Double Dribble, maybe even some more obscure stuff like Crypt Killer, Lethal Enforcers, or even Violent Storm. Now, when it comes to game compilations, everybody tends to have their ideas of what games that they would include, what games should be mandatory, and what games they wouldn't include. The problem with Konami's Arcade Anniversary Collection, which, mind you, is made to commemorate their 50 years in business, is that it doesn't contain a whole lot of games that I would consider among their classics. Now, that's not to say it's a bad compilation, but it's really only focused around one genre, which is the shoot 'em up. Now, the most important thing, however, is should you play it? So, with that being said, let's find out. Anniversary Collection Arcade Classics was one of 3 compilations Konami released last year to commemorate the company's 50th anniversary. The other 2 compilations are based on Castlevania and Contra. If you played either of them, then you'll notice that Arcade Classics has a different interface in its menu. Hamster, who have been bringing many classic arcade titles to consoles and PC, handles the conversions. Again, it's not a bad collection, and it's well worth its $20 asking price. However, let me put it like this. Do you like shoot 'em ups? Well, that's what you're going to get. I'm going to go through each of these games from worst to best. Haunted Castle is the only game in this collection that isn't a shoot 'em up. In fact, it's an early Castlevania game. When Dracula captures your newly led bride, you grab your whip and set out to rescue her. However, don't expect something on the level of Dracula X or even Super Castlevania 4. The game is frustratingly difficult, enemy attacks are all over the place, and they often respawn as soon as they're killed. The only saving grace of this game is the excellent music. Avoid this one unless you're a hardcore Castlevania fan, and you absolutely positively have to check it out at least once. Otherwise, go play Super Castlevania 4, Symphony of the Night, Rondo of Blood, Circle of the Moon, Portrait of Ruin, Order of Ecclesia, or really anything else that isn't one of the N64 titles. No, wait, even those are better than this piece of shit. Next up is Life Force, a game which came to the NES. It's a 2-player co-op Gradius spin-off where you fly through the body of an alien in the first level. The game has some awesome music, vocals, and graphics, and the weapon power-up system is simple compared to Gradius. The levels even alternate between horizontal and vertical, something that you simply don't see in other Gradius games. So why do I have this rated so low? There are no continues in single player. Even if you filled it with credits, you can't continue. Your only hope is to set the game as easy as possible, or bring along a friend so at least you'll have 2 continues. As it is, the game is hard as hell, and a lack of continues can easily scare off newcomers to the series. It's a shame too because there is so much that is cool about this game. Next is Scramble, and it's kind of unfair to place it this low. Only reason why is because everything that came after it kind of makes it look primitive in comparison. It's basically Midway's Defender on steroids, and it's a precursor to the rest of Konami's shoot 'em ups, particularly Gradius. Taking control of a ship equipped with lasers and missiles, you fly through 6 stages, keeping your fuel supply up to stay alive. It's simple and it's fun. However, like I said, it's primitive compared to everything that comes after it. After that is Typhoon. It's one of the 2 lesser known games in this package, the other being Thundercross. It starts out pretty wild too, as you take control of a fighter jet in a 3D dive bombing stage where you have to take out a battleship. After that, you take control of a helicopter in a traditional vertical shoot-'em-up stage. The 3D and 2D stages alternate. There are some awesome music and visuals. However, the game is frustratingly difficult. Enemy shots seem to hit you from out of nowhere, and the enemy patterns just fill up the screen almost randomly, so avoiding the chaos tends to be a matter of pure luck instead of skill. Also, power-ups tend to be far and few in between, even more so than in a Gradius game. This isn't even like a traditional bullet hell game, where you have a rip into it and even have a way to bypass the bullets. It's just hard as shit. Thankfully, the awesome music makes it bearable, and you want to keep challenging yourself just to see what comes next. Next up is Twin B, a cute 'em up if you will. It's got a brighter atmosphere, and is much easier compared to the other games on this list. It's aimed at kids, but adults are able to enjoy it as well. While it's not as well known as Gradius, it is the start of its own franchise that spanned quite a few installments throughout the late 80s and 90s. It's your typical vertical scrolling shooter where you can shoot lasers at aerial targets. Similar to Namco's Xevious, you can also throw bombs at ground-based targets by using a targeting reticle to aid you. Bells will appear throughout the game, and shooting these bells will change their color. Collecting these bells will grant different weapon upgrades and abilities depending on the color. In co-op mode, 2 players can combine their ships together for more powerful attacks. While the game is one-shot, one-kill like other shooters, if a bullet grazes the side of your ship, you only lose an arm. If you lose both, you can't throw bombs, and you have to wait for an ambulance to repair you before you can use your bombs again. Like Life Force, you can't continue, but it's an easier game, and it's easy to get extra lives. This is one of those games I have no major complaints about, besides the lack of continues per se. It's just that everything after it is just so much more awesome. Still, if you enjoy lighthearted shoot-em-ups like Fantasy Zone or Cotton, you'll want to check this out. Ditto if you got a younger player with you. Next is Nemesis, or as we know it, Gradius. It's likely the one game on here that you will be familiar with. You fly through several levels, and equip your ship with a custom loadout based on how many items you find and when you select your power-up using the bar below. You gotta master the enemy flight patterns, and it's challenging. Unlike games like Typhoon, it's not overly frustrating, and it makes you drill through it and get better. However, when you're equipped with a ton of weapons, and get killed and have to continue, it's sad to have to continue the level from square one, especially when you're about to fight a boss. And if you're an old school gamer like me, that will hit too close to home. Still, Gradius is one of Konami's most well-known franchises, and it's cool to see its origin here. Next up is Thundercross, another Gradius spin-off. Like Typhoon, this is another one of the lesser known games I mentioned earlier. However, this is a lot more balanced in terms of difficulty. Not only that, there's some awesome visuals, and I can't get enough of the music either. There's a limited amount of power-ups compared to the Japanese version. Even so, it's one of Konami's hidden gems. If you like Konami shooters, you should definitely check it out. Finally, Vulcan Venture is at the top, and it's truly top of the line. It's the sequel to Gradius, and it improves on that game in every aspect. This time you can select from a series of different weapon configurations. The levels are huge, and the enemies have even more variety as well. The music is even more awesome compared to its predecessor. Not only is Vulcan Venture one of the best games in the series, it's also the best game in this compilation. You can say what you will about Konami's choices for this collection, and I most certainly will, but if you're putting together a collection of shooters, then as far as I'm concerned, this is a must-have for it. Arcade Classics contains an in-game art book, achievements, and the ability to create quick saves. Shortly after release of this compilation, Konami released a patch that added the Japanese version of these games. Many of the Japanese games have different titles, changes to gameplay mechanics, and some even have different level orders. For instance, here's how the US version of Typhoon begins. Meanwhile, here's how Ajax, the Japanese version of Typhoon, begins. In addition to that, the Japanese version of Thundercross has different power-ups, while the Japanese version of Haunted Castle is slightly easier due to the player not taking as much damage from the enemies. One caveat though, if you have a quick save from the US version, then creating a quick save in the Japanese version will cause it to be erased, and vice versa. You may have noticed one point that I kept mentioning over and over again while discussing the games. That's right, the music and how much I fucking love it. I can't get enough of the tunes in this collection. This was the Konami Kukeha Club at its finest. They were the sound team that scored dozens of classic Konami games, including the games in this collection. These tunes just take me way back to when my brother and I were playing Nintendo games every weekend. Listen to this shit. You can't tell me these tunes don't make you want to nod your head. So with all that said, should you play it? Yes, that is if you really like shoot 'em ups. Yeah, basically there's too much of an emphasis on shoot 'em ups. Haunted Castle sucks, Typhoon is hard, and Salamander won't let you continue in single player. Also, if I was commemorating Konami's 50th birthday, there are several games that I would have included that aren't on here. Still, the arcade ports are perfect, there are some hidden gems, the music's awesome, and the $20 asking price is fair considering the amount of content. The in-game supplementals are interesting to look at, and patching in the Japanese games didn't hurt either. Although Konami Anniversary Arcade Classics doesn't have much variety when it comes to genre, the compilation does have some excellent shoot 'em ups. Between this, the Contra and Castlevania compilations, and the TG16 Mini, it would seem Konami is actually making games again, or at least decided to cash in on nostalgia. Let's face it though, next time we see most of these franchises, they'll probably be pachinko machines. You know what though? Fuck it. How often has Konami put out a semi-playable game these days? Plus, I'm a sucker for old school gaming. Therefore, I'm gonna stop complaining for now and go play some more Thundercross. Anyway, that's been it. That's been another edition of Should You Play It? Let me know what you think in the comments, especially if you want to see me take a look at both the Contra and Castlevania compilation that Konami did. Also, if you like what you just saw, make sure you hit that thumbs up icon. And if you haven't already done so, hit subscribe and click the little bell icon. That way you'll be the first to know whenever I produce new content. And if you want to check out my live gaming streams, make sure you follow me on both Twitch and on Twitter at ScrewfaceCapone. Anyway, that's it. Have a great rest of the week, and I'm Audi 51000G.